Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Don't Risk It podcast presented by VFIS Client Risk Solutions. This program focuses on the exposures our clients frequently encounter and discusses potential solutions to help reduce these exposures. I'm your host, Chris Rodgers with VFIS Client Risk Solutions, and today we're talking with Scott Cluett, John Mazza, and Jake Wark. Scott is the Stateside ASHER Coordinator for the Department of Fire Services in Massachusetts. John is a statewide ASHER Coordinator for the Municipal Police Training Committee in Massachusetts, and Jake is the Public Information Officer for the Department of Fire Services. They're joining us today to discuss some of the details of NFPA 3000 and how their ASHER program was developed using NFPA 3000 as a guide. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me today, and it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Chris, thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Jake, I want to start the line of questioning off with you with a very short and, well, I don't know if it's simple. We'll find out. What is NFPA 3000?
Sure. Thanks. NFPA 3000 is an internationally recognized model for cross-discipline preparation, response, and recovery to an active shooter or hostile event. It was created by consensus among dozens of subject matter experts drawn from a variety of fields, and that includes the fire service, law enforcement, public health, emergency management, and so on. What's most relevant for us in the law enforcement and fire rescue disciplines is the concept of integrated response by police and fire in these situations. Police to go in and stop the killing, and fire rescue personnel protected by police in rescue task forces to stop the dying. What's important on a sort of a broader scale is that it's not an operational plan, and it doesn't replace the judgment of local authorities. It's scalable to any size event, and it can be used in any location. Really, as a standard, it identifies the minimum elements that are needed to organize, manage, and sustain a response program, and that's what we're building here in Massachusetts.
So, Scott, I want to follow up with you. Jake mentioned integration. In most communities, law enforcement and the fire service, they typically stay in their own lanes and only really interact at the margins of an incident. How do we start the conversations with these agencies about integrating the response?
That's a great question. Thank you, Chris. Public safety is one team, and we all excel in certain areas, but collectively, we're much stronger as a whole community. We take a whole community approach and listen and learn from our partners. This is not a fire or a police problem. This is a community problem that needs everyone's help to resolve and mitigate. And we can support each other within these margins. When we hone our crafts within those margins, that's when we emerge as highly functional, integrated, cross-discipline teams. The active attack integrated response class is exactly that. It's integrated, meaning your police officers and firefighters are training at the same site, learning the same fundamentals, speaking the same language, and most importantly, learning from each other. It's funny, on day one of our classes, we see all the firefighters on one side of the room and all the police officers on the other. And by the second day, it's a complete mix. Camaraderie is being built, and relationships are getting created. It's really great to see.
Nice. So it's a way to get two agencies that are somewhat separate, but you're often at the same scene and working together. So it's just further reinforcing that relationship.
No, that's right. That's right.
So how does a state start or go about implementing a statewide ASHER program?
A statewide ASHER program, it needs to start at the top, Chris. It's really a top to bottom and side to side effort. And we firmly believe that this starts at the top of an organization. And here in Massachusetts, that's Governor Healy and her public safety leaders. When the directive starts at the top, the message is clear to all of us and the boots on the ground. And clear communication, realistic expectations are key to a successful implementation. We're fortunate here in Mass that our leaders have recognized this gap in training and support a cross-discipline statewide training effort.
So it sounds like the best way is for departments to kind of get together and then go to their legislatures or the powers that be in their respective state to get that started versus starting the program at their individual department level. Is that an accurate statement?
That's what's worked here for us in Massachusetts. I don't want to speak for other states, but that is the model that we have here in Massachusetts, and it does seem to be working. John and I have a full plate, and we have a lot of training scheduled for this year and looking at next year as well.
Right. You can't speak for everyone, but you can speak for the experience that you have, and that's what worked for you.
Exactly.
Are there organizations that support and deliver this type of training?
Absolutely. There are a number of programs across the country that meet the NFPA 3000 guidelines. Here in Massachusetts, we selected the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Center, known as ALERT, out of Texas State University. ALERT was created in the early 2000s in a response to the 1999 incident at Columbine High School. ALERT is a research and data-driven organization who respond with appropriate curriculum changes based on the most recent trends and reports. In 2013, the ALERT Center was recognized by the FBI as the standard response to active attacks. And in fact, the FBI annual report on active attacks is co-authored with the ALERT Center. The 2023 report was released just last week, actually.
Texas State is pretty close. I live in the Dallas area, so it's not too far from where I live that was developed. So that's nice to hear that they put that out there.
They're an incredible organization. We've been down to visit them down there in Texas. They offer an annual conference every year that we are a part of. We presented at it last year. I'm sure that we'll be doing another presentation this year. They're very engaged with the states that they're working closely with, and they just do a great job.
Well, don't come this week. The heat index was 117 in Houston yesterday, so it was it was hot and humid and steamy. So how funding is typically a thing that is brought up when training. How do we pay for this thing? So how is this training funded in your experience?
Various stakeholders and funding streams are available for this type of training. ALERT itself is a federally funded program, so there's generally no cost to states to support the training. But we all know that it costs money to put students in the classroom. And that burden is going to be on local resources to send their personnel to training. Many agencies are leveraging both federal, local, state grant money to pay for backfill and overtime to allow their staff to attend this training.
So are there any other entities that should be at the table when implementing NFPA 3000, or should we just limit this to law enforcement and fire and EMS?
That's a great question. No, it can't be just fire and EMS. An active attack event requires a whole community approach, Chris. We need to prepare for, respond to, and recover from an event like this, and it takes a whole community to do so. Police and fire are your early responders, but recovery from an active attack event may last weeks, months, or even years. Having a plan in place to address the needs of a community in such an event will lead to improved outcomes. Here in Massachusetts, we've partnered with the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency as a key partner in our response to active attack events.
So,
what's that, Chris?
No, go ahead. Good.
I was just going to say, additionally, ongoing care for our first responders is paramount to continuity of operations locally. Responders are going to feel the effects of an event like this for a long time, and some may not even return to the workforce. Psychological care needs to begin at the scene and be in place without barriers for all responders. Some additional considerations to include when we're thinking about who should be at the table include victim and survivor assistance, public information, mutual aid partners, state assistance, financial considerations. And we absolutely cannot forget our 911 operators and dispatchers. This group of professionals is instrumental in ensuring a cohesive and effective response to an incident.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but what I was just going to say that it sounds like that mental health and mental health awareness is a huge component of this. Obviously, stopping the event and treating those things, but after the event, there's long-term impacts, and it sounds like that mental health is something that needs to be addressed in it.
It absolutely does, and the data and science behind that has shown that this type of care needs to begin either at the event or immediately following the event, and it's going to go on for quite a period of time. And folks are going to need to see professional help and even group therapy, and getting these responders in the same room to talk about their experiences is one of the first steps in recovering from an event like this.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a couple of these events in the state of Texas, and to your point, it drove a couple of providers out of the industry, and that's the last thing we need in an industry that's struggling to staff fully as it is.
For sure, for sure.
So, what are some of the biggest obstacles in regard to training?
Might look over to my partner John to see if he'd be willing to take that.
So, Chris, we are not focused on the obstacles. Scott and I are focused on the objective, and that objective here in Massachusetts is to train every Massachusetts police officer and firefighter in the active attack integrated response model that alert provides. That class is a 2-day, 16-hour class. Combined, Scott and I have about 42,000 law enforcement officers and firefighters that we need to reach. There's 24,000 sworn police officers and approximately 18,000 firefighters in the state. We've designed a program where we will train, we aim to train 40 first responders at a time. And if we create classes of 40 to train 42,000 combined responders, we will need to provide 1,050 classes to meet this objective. The cost associated with that, simply the instructor cost, is in the area of $6.3 million. If you do the math, that really represents a $150 investment in each firefighter and police officer. So the cost is really, it is reasonable. It is not out of touch. To deliver the training, we need 4 objectives, 4 assets, and we need the 4 assets simultaneously. We need the instructors. We currently, Scott and I have certified 266 instructors to date. We hope to add another 150 air instructors next year in fiscal year 25. We need equipment. The equipment to offer this training costs about $100,000 per set. The state has provided us with 2 sets of equipment. We hope to double that this year in fiscal year 25. We need venues to train in. And that really has emerged as a bottleneck. You know, everybody says, hey, you can train in our facility, but there are certain requirements of those facilities, and not every facility is ideal or suitable for training. So we are a little bit selective with the facility. We want to make sure that it is the right environment to conduct the training in. So Scott and I have seen an uptick in our training tempo during the summer months and during school vacation week, because schools inherently are great training venues. And then the 4th asset that we need in this group of assets, it's the students, and they will come organically. And to date, we've trained approximately 785 first responders in this AIR model.
Jake, I believe you had a follow-up to John's comments.
Thank you, Chris. Just to follow up on something that John mentioned, we obviously face a challenge in training 40,000 or so first responders in Massachusetts. One of the strategies that we're using there is offering 2 levels of training. One for first responders geared directly toward firefighters and police officers. The other is reaching public safety instructors at the local level, so training officers in local police and fire departments, and at our state police and Massachusetts Fire Academy training centers. So we're also training instructors who can then return to their home departments or their regional teams and teach first responders themselves. So we're training the trainers to go out and deliver this training across their communities and their regions and districts.
One follow-up to that is, are you exclusive to Massachusetts, or do y'all train outside of the state?
That I'm going to have to defer to John and
so our instructors are certified by alert to teach under the alert umbrella. They would be allowed to teach outside of the state, but from a practical standpoint, I don't know anybody who is doing that currently. I think the instructors are very much focused on the task at hand here in the Commonwealth.
So I think this is it's a pretty simple question, but I think it's kind of difficult to answer. Why is this so important that we initiate this training? What impact do you think on a positive side that would have for emergency services?
After action report, it's a great question, Chris. I think after actions reports consistently tell us that this type of training is vitally important. Improving communication and integration is paramount to an effective response. There's always lessons to be learned from these reports and these events. We learn what works well and what doesn't, and we adjust our policies and standard operating guidelines regularly to meet these increasing and changing threats.
These events certainly they have a very big microscope on them after they happen. So I'm guessing, unfortunately, there are some teachable moments to learn from an event that could help the program out in the future. We don't want these events to happen, but that's wanting and then not happening. It's two different things.
Yeah, that's right. It's too bad that we're here and having to be in this environment. But I think that with the partnerships that we have and the efforts that we have and that we're putting forward, we're doing a really good job of mitigating any potential events that could happen.
So what can the public do to help out with the community, in their state, in any area? What can the public do to assist this?
So they can do a lot. Think about situational awareness. Note the exits when you walk into stores, restaurants, buildings, and think about an exit strategy. We always ask ourselves, what would you do if? And we play these scenarios. I play these scenarios out in my head when I'm walking around and go places, and I think it's important for most people to be doing so to prepare themselves. I'd also like to add that Alert offers a free online instructor level class to local police officers and firefighters called CRACE, C-R-A-S-E, and that stands for Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. This is a class that that firefighters and police officers would take online. These first responders then join forces and deliver a 45-minute to 2 or 3 hour class to their community members, such as schools, businesses, church groups, healthcare institutions, and their civilians. And at the heart of the situational awareness training is a statement, what you do matters. And the strategy is avoid, deny, defend, which is very similar to run, hide, fight. But the data has shown us that hiding in an active attack situation may not be the best plan. So we emphasize avoiding the threat or running, deny the threat entry into your location, such as barricade and prevent entry. And as a last resort, defend yourself by any means possible.
John, did you have a follow-up comment on what the public can do to assist?
So we do adhere to the Alert CRACE curriculum, which is built on the Avoid, Deny, Defend strategy. And I think that it is worthwhile to mention that if you can call 911 and report an active attack, please do so. If you cannot, in many jurisdictions, it is possible to text to 911. And I would encourage your listeners to determine if in their area, if text to 911 is available as a means to report an emergency.
Well, gentlemen, that was a lot of great information. It's a topic that don't really want to have to talk about, but we do need to because it's something that emergency services has to deal with. It's been put on our plate, and we have to respond to it. So I thank you for all the great information and the time this morning.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate the time today. Appreciate all you're doing for our first responders across the country. Thank you.
Chris, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and your audience today.
Thanks very much, Chris. Really appreciate the opportunity to join you.
Well, I want to thank you for those kind words, and your remarks are very much appreciated. And I want to thank you for listening to the program and for your interest in VFIS safety resources. I want to thank our guests Scott Cluett, John Mazza, and Jake Wark once again for their time and information. Please consider subscribing to our program to stay up to date on new content releases. Also, if you like what you've heard, please consider leaving a review below. For more information about the many resources available from VFIS, please visit VFIS.com. And to submit ideas for future discussions, please reach out by emailing VFISRiskControl@VFIS.com. Thanks everyone and have a great day. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Gladfelter Insurance Group, VFIS, and its employees.